G'day guys and welcome to Aussie English. My objective here is to teach you guys the English spoken down under. So whether you want to speak like a fair income Aussie or you just want to understand what the flippin' hell we're on about when we're having a yarn, you've come to the right place. So sit back, grab a cuppa and enjoy Aussie English. G'day you mob, how's it going? Welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today is another interview episode and I'm looking forward to bringing you this one because it is another interview, or it is the end of the previous interview that I did with my cousin Rhys Linnett. So I hope you enjoyed that interview with him. Make sure that you go and check that interview out. Episode 412, interview Life Working as a Brickie in Australia with Rhys Linnett. So in that interview, we talked a lot about working as a tradie in Australia, what kinds of expectations you should have, work life on the trade sites with other guys in Australia in particular, you know, workplace bullying, what's okay, what's not okay. So that was a really good interview. And then after that interview, he and I spoke a bit about his career as a karate fighter, a karate champion. So Rhys has actually travelled the world quite a bit, more when he was younger, competing as a professional karate fighter. And he now teaches in Dubai. So he scored a job recently. He got sponsored, sent to Dubai, and hired to teach karate there full time. So this one has a lot of vocab related to fighting and injuries and travel. So I really think you're going to enjoy this episode, guys. And don't forget, if you want the bonus content to this episode, if you want to practice this interview episode, work on your listening comprehension, as well as learn all the more complicated vocab from a 5 to 10 minute snippet from this episode, make sure that you sign up to the Aussie English Classroom. Remember, currently it's just $1 for your first month whilst you get used to it, whilst you give it a go, guys. That is an amazing offer, as most other memberships of this kind charge you the full fee straight out. So I really want you guys to take advantage of that $1 for the first month as it currently is. So get over there to the AussieEnglishClassroom.com, sign up, give it a go, and start improving your English. And you will instantly get access to all the previous episodes of interviews with all of the bonus content for those. So if you want to work on Aussie accents, this is where you can. And you'll also get everything else in there related to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Anyway, guys, let's get into today's episode with Rhys talking about karate. Let's go. Oh, awesome, man. Well, we should just quickly switch on to karate, I guess. So, Rhys, can you tell me how on earth did you end up as a black belt in karate world champion who is about to move to Dubai for potentially 2 years, being a sensei over there in your own dojo, is it? So just give me the story and talk to me about what's about to happen.
So I've got this job in Dubai teaching kids sort of like after school care. So basically it's for a lot of expats that are working long hours and, you know, their kids are over there, you know, doing school and they just don't have, you know, they don't want to put them into just daycare. They want them to get something out, whether it be, you know, sort of soccer, swimming, just general sports, or for, you know, my aspect, karate. So we're going over there doing that, and then with the opportunity to open up my own club within the company that I'm working for. I got the job through a mate of mine that I met travelling overseas and competing from England, and I just sort of put my name down and, you know, had to go through all these interview processes, and I actually didn't think I was going to get the job, and then, yeah, eventually, you know, 3-4 weeks ago, I found out I got the job, so that sort of just sort of fell in my lap a little bit, and it was just sort of fortunate that my mate was obviously had the job there, because it made it a lot easier, because I'm quite good friends with him, so, you know, he probably would have put in a good word for me, I'm assuming. I suppose starting karate was probably from getting bullied at school. My mum was just, you know, sort of fed up with me coming home, and, you know, kids generally are cruel to each other, so having some sort of escape and somewhere that you feel confident within yourself I suppose, is quite good. And karate, I think every kid goes through their life and at least tries karate. It's one of those things that I think it's like a rite of, especially in any sort of westernized country where it's a big thing. You know what I mean? And all the movies that you see and stuff like that, everyone wants to sort of try it. So I think it was bound for me to try it eventually. And I just sort of fell in love with it when I started competing. Got really into it. Was training nearly every day. Started doing, Vic State Championships, started doing well in them, started doing national championships, started doing well in them, started going overseas, started doing well in them, and then basically, just progression and just working really hard for big tournaments and just doing lots of preparation, and end up going to big tournaments and doing pretty well. So it's been a long process. It didn't, just happen overnight. I mean, I've been doing karate for nearly 13 years now, and it would have been probably 4 years were like the golden years for me, like where I was winning lots of tournaments, going overseas, traveling for karate, going several different tournaments overseas, and missing school and stuff like that. So it was always really awesome for me, being 15, going overseas, training with people and competing, and while my friends are at school, like, doing exams and stuff like that, and I would just get sort of pardoned for it, didn't have to do them. So it was always really cool for that aspect. But yeah, just sort of. It sort of just started, from bullying, I suppose. Just got involved in that, and it did really make me so much more confident with myself and dealing with bullies in not just a physical way. A lot of people think you learn karate to defend yourself and physically, block a punch and then punch someone back, but it's more. I wouldn't ever try to fight somebody with my hands and stuff like that. I'd fight them by, I calm the situation down and walk away, because I've been injured so many times, and there's a big thing in Australia, remember, with this one punch, and people can die, and it's not worth it, to me. I do fighting for sport. I don't need to do it when I'm out at a bar with my friends,
So what is the one punch thing exactly? Can you talk about that?
So it's basically a king hit, where they punch someone from behind in the back of the head, and generally what happens is when you get knocked out, your brain hits your skull, and then after that, when you get hit again, so your head hitting the ground is really, really bad for your brain. And a lot of people will wake up, feel fine, go to sleep, and then never wake up again. Yeah. And it's been a big thing they've cracked down. I know in Sydney it's really like a big thing they've cracked down on, that they're really trying to get that one punch out of for people doing it, and they're really trying to crack down on people doing it. I know if anybody is a boxing fan, if they see the boxer from Australia, Danny Green, he's a big supporter of the one punch, where they're really trying to eradicate it, and he speaks a lot about it after his fights and previously before his fights about it.
So why do you think that is so common in like Australian, I guess, pub culture with guys in their, say, 20s probably? It's become sort of not necessarily popular, but like a common thing that people seem to be punching strangers or getting into fights purposefully, but then, hitting someone once, them hitting the ground, hitting concrete, and then dying.
I think it's because as well the drinking culture in Australia, and especially with younger men. I mean, I'm sure, I know I've done it several times, is your eyes are a lot bigger than your stomach. You think you can drink a lot more than you can. You drink way too much, and somebody says something it's probably not even that insulting to you at all. It's probably just something that they've said, and you've just taken to the complete wrong context. Let it sort of go, stewed in your head, and then you just go up and try and hit them. I know for me and all my friends, I've spoken to them a lot of the times because I have been knocked out cold, and I've told them about how dangerous it is when you get knocked out and you hit your head again.
Was that in one of these instances, or was that in fighting?
From competing, not in a bar or anything else like that, from competing. And it's just basically from my coach telling me that, if you ever in a tournament and you do knock somebody out, that you really want to try and make sure you catch them before they hit the ground, because it's not the knockout that's bad for you, it's when you hit your head again.
And the trouble is, I think, too, people don't realise, and I've learnt this from being surrounded by MMA fighters, you probably have 2 or 3 of those that you can experience in your life before you have significant brain damage. One of them can potentially lead to noticeable brain damage, but if you get knocked out cold 3 times, I think, like in the UFC, some of those guys, they won't let them fight again, or they'll tell them, if you keep doing this, you're going to end up with some significant mental issues.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know there's so many studies that do it with NFL players, they do it with MMA fighters, kickboxers, Muay Thai fighters, karate, full contact fighters, like I'm sure rugby players in Australia, in other countries. They've done so many studies about it and the effects it does. I know heaps of people, like I've got a kickboxing coach who I've known him for ages, and sometimes he forgets my name, and I know him like quite well, and he's really punch drunk all the time. Like he's such a great guy, but he just sounds really dopey when you talk to him, and it's just because he's been hit in the head too many times and been knocked out too many times.
Yeah, so what's punch drunk for those who don't know what that term or expression means?
So punch drunk is basically when you've been hit in the head too many times from either like a contact sport, whether it be martial arts or footy or NFL or rugby, and basically you just sort of speak with a bit of a slur. Sometimes it's a big characteristic, or you forget things like just really basic things, like people's names is a big one that you've just met. You might have just met them, and then 5 minutes later you can't remember their name.
Yeah.
Slurring your words, forgetting things like you forget just really basic things like you'll go out for dinner and forget your wallet.
Yeah.
Things like that. It just basically means that you just run a bit slower than normal, the normal person your age, I suppose.
So what was it like worrying about this kind of stuff when you were fighting? Was it ever in your head, okay, like I'm fighting, but I need to make sure I don't have to get knocked out, or is it something you don't really think about?
I don't think you really think about it at the time. It's sort of like, I suppose if you ask any surfer, do they think about sharks when they're surfing? It's something you just don't really think about. I think that people who, for example, my mum, I know she would think about it a lot, just because she kind of sees it from a distance. She kind of looks at the bigger picture, whereas I look at I want to fight, I want to do well, I want to, get a good, I suppose, like ranking, in the world, I want to be a world champion. You sort of push all the other stuff to the side. Same with, the surfers or, mountain bikers or skateboarders, stuff like that. You don't really ever think about crashing and hurting yourself. You just sort of think about the positive side of things.
Yeah.
But I think, suppose, as I got sort of older and started to compete less, that I started to think about it more. And more just as well, especially, for long term, wanting to get a wife and kids and stuff like that. I want to sort of, I don't want my face to be all, mangled and have cuts all over it and stuff like that, just because it just doesn't look, ever pretty and stuff like that. You want to still have...
For context, Rhys is actually also a model.
So, just, for those things, I mean, like my coach used to always say to me, he's like, mate, if you want to get a good-looking girlfriend... you got to protect yourself, because if you don't want a good-looking girlfriend, you can have your nose splattered all over your face. It's up to you. But he said, for me, I want to have a good-looking wife. I don't know about you. If you don't care, then it's up to you. But it's basically just about protect yourself. I definitely think though, once you stop competing, you start to think about it more. And I know whenever I teach, I always encourage saying that it's not always about the attack and like the countering. It's mostly about protecting yourself first, especially for karate. The first thing, nobody goes to karate and asking, I want to hurt people. Yeah. They go there and they want to defend themselves, and that's the biggest starting. That's like the first thing you learn in karate, is that it's about defense.
Have you ever met any people like that come into the dojo and say, I'm here because I want to learn to hurt people?
You do meet them, and generally what happens is that within a safe environment, that the bigger people or the better people. It happens a lot in like kickboxing and Muay Thai, and I suppose what happened in Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Yeah.
And basically, the people who are good, they smash you. They don't hurt you. They just show you that that attitude doesn't go down well in those environments, and it doesn't go down in any martial arts that I've ever met. It doesn't matter what sort of martial arts you do. If everybody comes in like that, usually the people who the big hitters, who are generally the people who are the best to train with. Because they're more helpful, and they don't go with like I just came from a seminar where I'm a lot better than everybody else, but I don't go around pushing my way around just beating people up because I can. I go around and I help them, so I let them throw attacks at me, and I let them go through because it gives them confidence. If I just went in and smashed everybody, well, no, everyone's going to go back and they don't want to do karate anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the funny thing in jiu-jitsu, whenever you have those kinds of people who show up and say that, or you get that kind of vibe from them when they're on the mat, you can pretty much be sure they're either going to change rapidly and lose that kind of attitude, or they're going to leave because they can't handle being beaten by, say, a girl half their size who's been training for 8 years and could potentially kill them if they wanted to. So it is funny how that kind of, those environments get rid of those kinds of people or change them for the better. But do you want to talk about what it's like training for championships and where that's taken you overseas?
So training for championships is quite hard. I always did it when I was a bit younger, so it wasn't too bad, but it's always hard on your family.
What age did you start at?
I started competing when I was probably 13, and I competed up till I was about 21. And it's quite hard for everybody involved. So especially, well, mainly for my parents and even my brother as well, is that sort of everybody becomes part of the competition. So everybody you might be the one fighting and standing in the ring, but everyone sort of takes a toll. So, you know, my parents have to drive me to trainings on Saturdays and Sundays and Friday nights and Thursday nights, you know, or every night. So I have to take time out of the day to do that. You know, if I get injured, my mum has to take a day off work to look after me or take me to the hospital. If, you know, there's a big tournament and my parents want to go and watch, well, my brother basically, he, you know, loses time with my parents and with the family, or, you know, he might not be able to go somewhere if he wasn't old enough to drive or something like that. So sort of everybody gets affected. For the really big ones, it's quite hard to switch off. You generally, you know, after the tournament, you kind of don't really know what to do with yourself, because it just becomes your life. Where, you know, for me, for senior fights, you know, I'd have to be dieting. You know, being under 60 kilos, you know, you can't eat bread for 4 months because the carbs in it, you know, it's just too much. You can only eat pasta, you know, 1 meal per day, you know, for 2 months, and in the last month you can't eat pasta at all. You have to be training every day, so when you go to work, you need to make sure you don't get hurt. You know, you need to make sure you don't get any injuries. If you get cuts, you need to make sure you treat them well. You don't get infected. You need to make sure that all your iron, you're eating the right food. Your vitamins are on point. You know, whether you have to take a multivitamin or eat more vegetables. Make sure you don't get sick. There's so many factors that you have to consider, and then also it's about getting overseas and going over there. So whether it be we're in Australia, I'm going to England, well, you got to think about jet lag, so you need to make sure that you sleep on the flight. Whether that be, you know, you make sure you don't have any energy drinks or any, you know, caffeine or anything before your flight, so you sleep. Getting prepared with all, you know, your equipment, so you need to make sure your equipment's right. You need to make sure you've packed everything. You know, there's so many factors, and it's afterwards really hard to switch off. Generally, that's why people will go to tournaments and they'll train for 3 years non-stop. So, you know, they might have a week off after a really big tournament just to sort of relax, but then you're back straight into it because you don't know what to do with yourself. It just becomes your life. And it becomes, especially when you're younger and you're under the age of 18, you can't drive yourself to training and stuff like that. It becomes everyone's life, where it's kind of revolved around you.
So would you go back and do it again exactly the same way if you could have?
I think, yeah, I would. I would probably, if anything, I would have started a bit earlier, because I started when I was 11 and a lot of my friends started when they were like 5 or 6, and it kind of gave them a bit more experience in just the workings of tournaments and the lifestyle a bit. If I wanted to, and I think I would have done a lot better when I was older. So when I was, you know, in my 20s and stuff like that, I would have done a bit better, got better results and stuff like that from just the more experience in it. I think I probably would have lived overseas. I would have done, because I lived overseas after I stopped competing for a year, but I think I would have done it earlier and I would have lived over there whilst I was competing, just because there's more access to tournaments. Australia, we're very isolated with our competition, and I suppose it's for any sort of martial arts, it's where you need to be getting in rounds with different people and fights, that you notice that our boxers, our kickboxers, our MMA fighters, you know, our jiu-jitsu fighters and stuff, they're up there, but there's only a select few. You know, there wouldn't be any more than 20 world ranked highly fighters, you know, whether it be in any sort of martial arts, I believe, in the world, as opposed to if you go to, you know, the States or Europe. You know, in Europe there's so many more fighters, or Asia, or, you know, anywhere like that, or, you know, South America, where there's so much more, because there's so many more opportunities to do fights. So it's for a fighter's perspective, you really need to be living over where there's, you know, there's possibilities you can fight. For karate, there's, you know, in Europe there's tournaments every weekend. In Australia there's probably 7 really good tournaments to go to per year.
Yeah.
And you can go to 7 within 4 weeks over in Europe.
So you would say it's actually surprisingly expensive as a sport then, right, as a result of that?
The best, it's exactly that. It's a lot more for personal growth rather than financial growth. The most money I ever won from a tournament was $2,000, and it cost me $8,000 to get there. Just the flights. That's not including any of the training leading up to it, none of the tournaments leading up to that, any of the, new gears I might need to get, or, you know, karate equipment, or mouth guards, or, you know, injuries for, you know, days off work that I had to have. That's just what it cost me to fly over there and my accommodation, and I got $2,000 back from it. So that's the most money I've ever won, and it barely even cut, not even halfway there of what it cost me to go there. So
to be fair, that having that experience has led to you getting this job now where you're ending up in Dubai on a pretty sizable paycheck for a few years, so it has been worth it, I take it.
Yeah, it has. And I think that's just from perseverance, where I trained. I never trained and did it for the money. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people say, you hear people saying that, like, oh, MMA, I'll never do it for the money. Or, whoever it might be, I'll never do it for money. Well, when you're getting like $4 or $5 million per fight, pretty sure you're doing it for half of the money. You know what I mean? It's not all just for personal growth, where for us, you don't get any money at all. It is just for personal growth. And I had a goal that I was aiming for. I might not have gotten there, but the journey between it had led me into different things, getting really good friends with people. When I went to England one of the times, I had free accommodation for a month, just from meeting somebody that I competed with. And they said, no, if you're coming over, you're more than happy to stay there. So, it's not just personal growth for fighting, but also just for life as well. And also it's landed me this job in Dubai to teach there. And, who knows what other, doors it may open just from going there from that. So it's not just the competing side. It obviously has opened up many pathways for me to, whether it be coaching or whether it be opening up my own club, or whether it be coaching for just specific teams for, just for fighting, or, whoever knows what it might be. I mean, I've just finished doing some seminars on the weekend and stuff like that. And it's, it's a nice little paycheck for the weekend for me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I didn't do all the training I did. And, people pay me to go to teach them stuff that I've had to pay to learn. And then eventually I'm sort of, I'm roughly getting that money back. So it sort of does level itself out.
I guess bringing it back to the listeners, if they potentially are moving to Australia or have just gotten here and they either do karate already or want to take it up, or maybe their kids do karate already or their kids want to take it up, what kind of advice would you have for them on where to train and what style to take up?
Well, if you're going to any one of the states, if you type in into Google, especially if you're in Australia, the AKF, and then whatever state you're living in, whether it be Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, WA, or Northern Territory, Tasmania, Canberra. If you go through the AKF, they'll have people you can talk to from each state. I'm pretty sure from each state that you can call and you can ask them, and they can recommend different dojos to go to. So if you practice Shotokan, Goju, Shitoryu, there's so many styles. You can either aim to go to your style, and they'll have a few different clubs that are registered through the AKF that you can go to, and then they can you can just work out whichever one's closest to you, or maybe you recognise someone's name from somewhere or a style, you can go to that one. And they'll be able to point you in the best direction. So that's probably the best bet to go if you, especially for karate. But apart from that, I would assume that most organisations, whether jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, judo, there's going to be an Australian federation for it. That you can phone up, talk to somebody, and they'll be able to point you in, and maybe not also just in the exact direction, but in the right direction to go to get somewhere to be able to train.
Oh, awesome. And are there things that they need to look out for if they do end up at a club? Like, just, I guess, obvious things that are good or bad?
I think if you do practice it, you're going to be able to pick it straight away. I wouldn't say there's anything very obvious to look for, but if you're new and you want to start training somewhere, I would say, especially for karate, if you can find somewhere through the AKF, they're generally quite good. Not saying that other karate dojos aren't. It's just that from my personal knowledge, that I know that people who compete in the AKF and are registered through them, it's actually really expensive and quite hard. You have to have a specific coaching accreditation. You have to be at least a third dan that is recognised by the AKF and the WKF. You have to have obviously all your paperwork, business needs to be registered, insurances, things like that, just to be registered through the AKF. So you're sort of ticking off not only the training boxes, but also sort of the legal side of things as well. So you don't have to worry so much about, someone stealing your money or something like that for fees and things like that. Because it's, if they're within that AKF, they're probably going to be caught out before you even start training with them. So I think that if you want to do any martial arts, just, if anything, if you find somewhere, just Google them or call up a federation and ask them, have you heard of these people or this club? And just sort of, just do your research a little bit before you start signing up for anything straight away.
Brilliant. And before we finish up, what's the worst injury you've ever had and how did it happen?
There's been a few. I think the worst for longevity was I fractured both my feet in one tournament, and I didn't know at the time because I did one twice. So I went to kick someone in the body and they blocked it with putting their arm down and it hit their elbow. So it was my right foot first, and I thought, oh, well, I'm just not going to kick with my right foot anymore. I thought it was just, it's happened to me before where it's just been swollen, but I didn't realise at the time it was fractured. And so I kicked with my other foot in another division, and I did the same thing with my left foot. So I thought, my left foot's really bad now. So I thought I'm right-footed. I thought it was more natural. I thought I'll probably be able to get it in. And it happened a third time. And I ended up winning one of the divisions, coming second in the other one. And then afterwards, I thought everything was okay. Just my feet were going to be a bit sore. And then I couldn't walk. So I had to have my friend carry me to a car, drove home. Got home, it was just getting progressively worse. So I went to the hospital, and they basically said that the x-rays looked like my bones and my feet were all like spider webs. So they had cracks all between my feet. Right. So they said that it wasn't bad enough. There was no significant actual cracks between the bones, so they couldn't cast it. So they had to just basically bandage them up, and I had to pretty much get wheelchair back to the car, and then I couldn't walk around for about a week. So I just had to sit in bed, and that was probably the worst one because I couldn't get a cast on it. They were always, you never think about how often you bump your feet, but you drop like an empty water bottle on them if you've got fractures. It's like dropping a brick on your feet. So that was probably the worst one, just because you're always, you can't walk anywhere, you can't really do anything. So it's basically sitting in your bed for a week. And this is before Netflix.
That's the worst. I guess the last question, karate or bricklaying, are you going to pick one of them over the other, or do you think they both have a spot in your life in the future?
I think I'm probably leaning more towards karate because bricklaying, for me, I enjoy doing it, and I'll still, like, when I get my own place, if I need to fix things, I'll still obviously do it then. Or I've got friends family friends or something that need something small fixed, or they just need something done on the cheap, I'm more than happy to do it then. I'll always keep a couple of tools lying around for doing it. But for me, karate I think it's become more of my life. I've done it for a bit longer, and I think it's just more for me. I can do it for longer. You can always see things on YouTube. There's some 96-year-old Japanese dude who's, breaking bricks with his head or something like that, and you're just like, how you still be able to do that at that age?
There's no 96-year-old or 93-year-old bricklayers doing the same sort of equivalent in bricklaying.
No, exactly. So, as a brickie, you basically, once you get to like 60, you pretty much have had it. So, you hear people about being able to train, and the thing is as well, it's, you don't always have to do the techniques and do the movements. You can teach a lot of time by explaining things, and especially when you get quite good and basically all the techniques and all the drills and all the the katas and whatever it might be inside out, you can do a lot of the teaching by explaining it and just conversing your knowledge rather than actually demonstrating something. So I think for me, it's good for the longevity. I'll be able to do it for longer, and you can still make reasonable money over it, and yeah.
Oh, brilliant, dude. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, man. And if people want to find out more about you, do you have an Instagram or anything they can follow?
Yeah, there's nothing really about my karate that's on there, but I will be starting to do it more for when I'm in Dubai, because it's going to be more for my teaching, not so much somebody else's. So I've always taught for somebody else, whereas this one, it's going to be more for me. So yeah, it's Rhys Edward and with an L at the end.
Yeah, I'll attach that at the bottom. But awesome. Cheers, dude. Thank you so much.
No worries, man. Thank you.
All right, guys, so that was it. Big thank you to my cousin Rhys Linnett for coming on the podcast once again to chat to us about fighting, about karate, about how he got into that sport, traveling the world, and everything else in there. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in a comment, whether it's on the podcast website, whether it's on Facebook. Have you ever done karate, or have you done any other martial arts, and what was your experience like? How did you do them? How did you get into them? How did you start them? Aside from that, guys, remember, if you would like to study this interview in more depth, if you would like to learn quickly how to better understand Australians when they speak with their various different accents, some strong, some not so strong, make sure that you enroll in the Aussie English Classroom. It's $1 for the first month, guys. And don't forget too, guys, I have a Patreon page. So if you would like to support the Aussie English podcast, if you would like to support what I do teaching people English, then you can sign up there. You can pledge as little as $1 per month to support me and the Aussie English podcast. And this podcast is 100% funded by you guys. There's no ads on it. There's just you guys either buying the materials that I sell or donating via websites like Patreon. Anyway, you mob, I hope you have an amazing week, and I will chat to you soon. See ya. G'day, mate. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Aussie English Podcast. If you wish to support the podcast and help me keep bringing you content, you can do so via my Patreon page. Remember, it's my mission here at Aussie English not only to help you understand Australian English, but to speak it like a native. If that's your goal, make sure you enroll in the Aussie English Classroom, guys, where you'll get all the bonus content for today's episode designed to improve your English even faster. Have a ripper of a day, and I'll see you in class.